This week, what we're going to cover is kind of short. In CodeEasy, it's basically using the var data type and how to use constants. In addition to that, in the lesson key points, I'm also going to cover an array list because the var data type works really well with an array list. Array list is very similar to list, which we covered last week with arrays. The primary difference is that you can add any data type to an array list, which is why using var, which is generic, works really well. So you are going to start with the lesson key points because it covers what var is, what constant is, and then how you do an array list. Okay? And then you can go into CodeEasy. This is super, super short this week. There are only 4 exercises. Okay, so not a whole lot there. Definitely come in to the instructor and CodeEasy hints. 2 of the exercises I don't think you guys will have any problems with, but I have hints for all of the exercises. So the first one is remove double spaces. I kind of indicate what the tricky part of this is, which is not the for loop. It's the if statement inside the for loop that actually determines whether the letter should be written to the council. That is the part that they omitted from the hint, okay? The tricky part, they did not put in their hint. So here's what you need to check for. I'm telling you, basically what you need to do in the if statement. I'm actually kind of giving it to you here. I'm giving it to you in kind of pseudocode language. Okay, but you can see if I equals 0. So you guys all know how to convert that, right? So if I equal 0, okay? Or, um, so, here, the second one, this is pretty much code, right? Input I minus 1 doesn't equal blank. Okay, that's not even pseudocode, that's code. Okay, and then the third one, back to pseudocode. So you guys need to convert that all into code. Okay, and then you're not going to have a problem with it because this is the if statement that they don't tell you about up here in their helpful hint. Okay, so then we get into draw a square with Ascii Art. So this is kind of tricky because it has a nested for loop. And so, you have to be aware of when you're processing rows and when you're processing columns. So in the algorithm here, I use the word row instead of I, and then I use the word column because I think it's easier to visualize that way how this is working. Okay, and so this is an algorithm that you have to convert into code. Okay, but I think you guys will be able to do this. And you certainly can convert it using row and column. So you read in the size, you guys all know how to do that, right? Int size equals int dot parse console dot read line. Right, we got the size. So then we do our outer for loop. For int row equals 0. I'm actually kind of giving you the code there. Row is less than size plus 2. Row plus plus. And let's see. We got our curly. And then we got our little nested for. And I'm actually giving that to you here. Okay, column is 0. Column is less than size plus 2. Column plus plus. So let's do the little curlies for the inner. All right, so now we're on our inner for loop. And this is all the fun little if statements. And this pretty much looks straight up code. So when I give you guys the code here in the algorithm, that pretty much means that I think this is too hard for beginners. So I'm basically giving you guys the code. Okay, so hopefully you're listening to this and you go through and read this because this will make it quite easy for you. So I've got let's see, nested for loop, got columns if the row is 0 or the row is equal to the number of rows minus 1. The number of rows minus 1. Number of columns minus 1. So the number of rows and the number of columns are basically the size plus 2. So I just paused this video and I added that because I didn't want that to confuse you. So in your little code that you're creating, would have a couple more little variables up here, number of rows. All right. And so then this all makes perfect sense, right? So if the row is 0 or the row is equal to the number of rows minus 1 and the column is 0 or the column is equal to the number of columns minus 1, you do a plus sign. Okay. In order for you guys to have figured this out, you actually have to map this out on paper and you have to think about the columns and the rows. So this is something that is actually quite difficult for a beginner. And that is part of the reason I'm just giving you the code. And then down here, you need a right line. And that should go above the closing brace for your row. So the outer loop is the row loop. So this little closing goes for the columns. This one here is for the rows. So right above that is where you need the right line. Okay, so this is pretty much what you guys need. And if you do that, you should get it right. And then the other one, learning constant dot broken virus. You basically have to make the code work correctly. So you're going to remove a constant from the strings and it will run correctly. I thought the directions were a little confusing because it read like you shouldn't change the constants, but you actually have to remove the constant for it to compile correctly. And then this second one, learning constant dot broken virus 2, one of the rules about constants is that var data types and static cannot be constant. Okay, so basically you just need to change the constant variable pi to a constant double pi and it will work. Okay, so these this week are truly helpful. So you guys are not going to get frustrated and pull out your hair trying to solve these problems. And there's only 4 of them. Okay, so helpful hints covered all 4. Okay, so then we come down here. You only had 4. So you're going to come in, you'll do a screenshot of your dashboard, and I'm expecting all of you to do quite well since my helpful hints were practically giving you answers. So you'll submit to the dashboard, and this is kind of the breakdown of points. Not a whole lot for me to score. Your lab assignment this week, it's just one program. Watch the video because I basically walk through this program, I explain how it works, and then I go through the directions and tell you what you need to do. You can actually use this program as a starting point, and then I kind of walk through the directions and tell you what you need to change. Okay, so that is just one program this week. And then you have your unit test. It is worth 50 points. The questions are 1 to 5 points each, depending on how hard they are. It's open book, open note, and you can take it 3 times. The system is going to, store your highest score. You are going to be able to see if you got the answer correct or incorrect, but you will not see the correct answer until the test closes. And you'll notice that I am giving you a couple weeks to do it 3 times. And then for additional resources, I've got Arraylist and the var data type. These solutions for the more difficult problems are hidden from you guys, but I do have them. So if you, let's say you do your code in Visual Studio and it runs fine, and it looks like your output's right, but Codeasy is marking it wrong. Okay, the solutions that I have are the ones that I keyed into Codeasy that scored. So what you need to do is take the screenshot of your code and the output, email it to me. I will double check it, and if it looks right, I'll just send you my solution. Okay, so that way, you've basically met the requirement of the assignment, and I'm not going to have you guys keep working on code when your code is perfectly fine. Okay, so just send it to me and I will send you these solutions. If you run into problems this week, let me know, and have an awesome week.